Welcome to the real world. My name is Caleb Witten. I'm the young adult pastor at Bedico Baptist Church. And this podcast serves the purpose of helping college students and young adults know Jesus and know him deeply. Even if we are at a distance from you this summer, we want to be able to minister to you in a loving way and in every way possible. Today, we are here with Joe Pumilia and Josh Dickinson. Is that correct?
Josh
And
Dickson.
Dickson. Okay, gotcha. And so these men go to our church, and Joe actually owns both the Chick-fil-A's locally in Hammond. And I wanted to continue this conversation that we're having about work is worship. And last week we talked to Dr. Matt James about work is worship, using our education for the glory of God. This week we're talking about work is worship, how to work in a secular environment outside of the church and use that as an opportunity to glorify God as well. So we're going to get into a few icebreaker questions. I want you, both of you, to answer each of them as long or as short as you want. But you both, obviously, you work for Chick-fil-A, and I want to, Joe, we'll start with you. How long have you been with Chick-fil-A?
So with Chick-fil-A, I've been with Chick-fil-A. I started in 2001. And so I've been with Chick-fil-A over 20 years as an operator since 2011. So about 13 years as a franchise operator.
I was born in 2000, so
So we hire a lot of people well after I started
That's
Chick-fil-A
funny.
now.
That's funny. And Josh?
So I've been with Chick-fil-A about 8 months now. Fairly new with Chick-fil-A. Learning a lot with Chick-fil-A.
Awesome.
But he's been a customer a long time.
Right.
Yes, that's exactly how I came to Chick-fil-A from a workplace. Love Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Great company to work for. Great company to eat at.
Yeah, for sure. That actually segues into my next kind of icebreaker question. What's your go-to order at Chick-fil-A? This is a pretty common social media question.
Yes,
What's your go-to?
I say, like, when I'm trying to be healthy, I'll eat the salad for sure. When I'm stressed, I'll usually get a spicy deluxe with a sweet tea. That's like my go-to.
Okay.
So my go-to is a number one combo. I'm going to try to be healthy, and I'm going to add a multigrain bun.
Okay.
There. Does that really? Yeah,
Hey.
I don't know about that. Makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
If I'm stressed, I'll do fries. If my wife is there, I'm going to do fruit cup.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. I don't. Sometimes I just go for the fries. That's all I go get. But I also want to say this past Monday I went and tried. I don't know whose idea it was, but they're genius. The new frosted beverage, the berry
frosted cherry berry?
Frosted cherry berry.
You like it?
Oh my gosh, it was so good.
Did you add lemonade to it?
I didn't. I will next time though.
Yeah,
I had a
those
roll.
limited time ones are really good.
Okay,
They're
yeah,
usually pretty good.
that was the first limited time one that I've had. My grandmother loves the frosted lemonade, so we would get those on occasion. But I definitely really enjoyed that one. And this kind of segues out of that part into we're just diving into the deep questions. What is just something that each of you in your walk with the Lord, what's something that the Lord has been teaching you recently? We ask this to every guest just to see how we are developing as disciples of Christ individually. So what's the Lord been teaching you?
Yeah, I think for me, and I guess like respect to work and stuff is, I think it's more patience. I think patience, grace, and even with Josh coming along is just seeing, really seeing work as ministry is really seeing the people that we do work with. We really feel a need in their lives. I think of being cared for as a person and being known. And I've known this for a long time. There's a lot of people that work with us. They might not get smiled at anywhere else besides work, and a lot of them, they won't get cared for at home, even at home or at work or anything. They'll get, I just know that. I mean, I know a lot of kids, they get bullied at school.
Yeah.
And they get, and even at home, to a certain extent, they get bullied from step parents and stuff. And so I think just being more patient and empathetic and trying to put myself in team member shoes when they do struggle is trying to find out why they struggle, instead of just getting frustrated about the performance.
Yeah, that's great.
And I think for me, it's the aspect of, with Chick-fil-A, we're daily developing professionals.
Mm-hmm.
We want people to feel, including our team members, our guests, safe, known, and cared for. But we want to daily develop our team members into professionals. But there's an aspect of, even when we come in contact with guests, we really want to point people to a purpose. There in ministry setting, we're pointing people to Christ. I think really in our daily walk, we should be pointing people to Christ there. So as we're daily developing professionals, I know John Paper wrote a book, a ministry book, Brothers, we're not professionals. He was directing that to pastors, because pastors really needed to hear that at that time. But even as people, I think we are so focused on being a professional that we're not genuine. And in our walk with Christ, while we want to daily develop people, we want to come alongside them and care for them as people so that they can improve professionally, but really daily in their life.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that's something that I can see, especially in an environment like Chick-fil-A, to have that type of genuineness or care, even from top-down leadership. It really does seem to affect, I mean, even from a business standpoint, like effort, that it's a lot easier for a team member to buy into a business where they feel cared for. And so I think even beyond the relational aspect, or even the gospel-centered aspect of it, just to run a business effectively means having good relationships with your either coworkers or employees. And that's something that I've noticed, particularly at every Chick-fil-A I've been at. It seems like there are that seems to be a pretty high value on the chain of morals there.
Yeah, I mean, so Truett Cathy really kind of started Chick-fil-A and then came up with the corporate purpose a long time ago. It was really to glorify God by being a faithful steward of all we're entrusted. And so I think most operators and Chick-fil-A people are really bought into the purpose of, like, we do know we answer to God, and to be a faithful steward of those relationships and of those people. Because some team members, I mean, the average team member probably works with us maybe a year. And so, like, so some team members work with us for a few weeks or a month, up to some people stay with us for years. And so I think it's like stewarding that time of influence that you can have is just a really high calling, though.
And I think, to Joe's credit, at Chick-fil-A and operating the Hammond stores, really we don't reinforce we're a chicken business. That purpose statement, we're a people business.
Yeah.
We happen to sell chicken.
Yeah.
You want to come buy chicken, we want to fully support you, and we want to provide that chicken. I call it the ministry of chicken sometimes. But really, as a Chick-fil-A, 2 stores in Hammond, to daily develop professionals, to daily develop people, and to impact people, whether that be our team members or whether that be our guest.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I kind of want to break this down into 2 parts of a whole conversation, as we're talking about work as worship outside of a ministry context, or maybe even outside of a church ministry context. The ministry of chicken, it's there every day. I want to begin with just building a Christian work ethic. Obviously, in the kind of the bones of Chick-fil-A, that's already built in there. Like you're sacrificing the Sunday sales. That's a day when the majority of people go out to eat, and that's just seems like a moral value, obviously a spiritual value, that from its origin, the company's origin, has been very founded on, hey, we're going to work hard for the Lord, but we're working for the Lord, and we believe that that's an important thing. But this leads to my first question, and either one of you can speak into this. What is some of the foundation of like a strong Christian work ethic?
I think the foundation is just like love your neighbor as yourself. I mean, I think really just treat people the way you want to be treated. And I just know multiple occasions, even when Truett was around, they would ask Truett how to handle things, and he would always just say that. He's like, just treat people the way you want to be treated. Like, even with our vendors and everything, is like, obviously we'll try to get a good deal on things, but it's like we're never going to try to make things so hard on our vendor that we're not treating them, if we were in their shoes, how we would want to be treated. And so I think that's really the foundation of it, is treat people the way you want to be treated.
Okay. And then what makes it what makes that kind of perspective different from a secular work ethic?
I think, I don't know if it answers that particular question, but I think there's an aspect of mercy and grace when we talk about treating people how we want to be treated. We want to be very gracious there. We want to show people mercy. But the loving thing to do, and the more I work for Chick-fil-A, it's confronting in a healthy conflict, if you will, with that foundation of accountability there. When Jesus died on the cross for us, he really took upon himself our sins. He, in essence, was taking accountability for us. So when we talk about the foundation of a work ethic there, I think it's always realizing who Jesus is and what he's done for us, and pouring into people there so that we can be loving, but also the loving thing to do is to show them a great work ethic and hold to a standard that's high.
Yeah. That high standard gets into the next part of this. The next question I had, like the conversation of excellence, particularly within a Christian work ethic. Like how important is that for the Christian in the secular workplace to pursue a high level of excellence?
I think it's really important. I mean, I think it's I can't remember exactly what the verse is, but it's like work as if you're working for the Lord, and then and then also just thinking of the fruit of the Spirit. I think you can it's how you demonstrate the fruit of the Spirit is by your work ethic. I think it's really just and I mean, I was talking to one of our leaders this morning about it. It's like I struggle sometimes being content, and I think sometimes sometimes the frustrations of the business or just the work of the business, sometimes you want to do more or do something different. And I think it's just a reminder of God gave you today as a gift, and to be content with it and maximize it and be the best steward of it. So I think definitely the stewardship piece is, and I believe that too. Is I believe when you're a good steward of what you're given more.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so third question. What's the best way? I know obviously both of you are leaders in the organization there. What's the best way, or maybe tips that you've found in handling conflict with coworkers, particularly if you are a Christian, handling conflict with a non-believer or a non-Christian? What are helpful tips there?
Yeah, I mean, and we were just talking to Pastor John about the 5 dysfunctions of a team is a really good book. I would recommend anybody in leadership to read. But I mean, it just talks about healthy conflict and having vulnerability-based trust. As I think with anybody, you have to have that trust that you're going for the same goal, especially if you're on a team. So if it is you and a coworker, in our situation, is the goal is to serve the customer, and so we're gonna have conflict. Right. We're all gonna have conflict, but I think we need to be able to talk through that conflict. And really just come up with the best decision to serve the customer. And I think that's what I think empathy. I think a lot of times if you've been a Christian a long time and you understand the Bible and you understand truth and you're speaking to somebody that doesn't know the Bible at all, I think being empathetic and understanding they probably have no clue what you're working with.
Right.
or so I think being empathetic and loving and treating them the way you would want to be treated, if you lack the knowledge that they might lack.
Yeah.
One of our core values at Chick-fil-A Hammond is caring. We're caring because we're customer obsessed, but we're caring for our team members. We're caring for our customer, and the most caring thing we can do really is to engage in that conflict in a loving manner. If we're not addressing the conflict, we're avoiding the conflict. And a lot of times we think that may be the healthiest thing to do, but really it's creating more conflict. It's kind of like a snowball effect there.
Yeah.
So really at Chick-fil-A, whether it's a believer or an unbeliever, I think we need to handle it the same way.
Okay.
In a loving, caring way, and put that pressure on, but also that person that we're confronting needs to understand that we're confronting them because we care, and we're confronting them because it's the best for the business going forward, but also for them going forward to process that that emotion, if you will. Because reality is we're wrong a lot of times. I'm wrong more than I'm right most of the time. But we're afraid of failure. We're afraid of admitting that. And I think if we place people on a playing field where it's okay to be wrong, Chick-fil-A Hammond does that very well. We're going to be wrong, but it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And when we're wrong, let's make it right.
Okay, Josh, I have another question for you. So you have a background in church ministry.
I do.
In the past. And so the Lord has kind of moved you into this new season in Chick-fil-A. What shift have you seen maybe in yourself and maybe in your own work ethic moving from a church-based career to a career that's very much in the world, in the secular environment?
Sure. So for 25 years, my goal was to equip the saints for the work of the ministry. Discipleship focus. If I was doing ministry, then I'm really doing ministry wrong, because the goal was for people to do ministry.
Okay.
And now as I'm shifting and working in Chick-fil-A, as I'm equipping people for the work of the chicken ministry, if you will, as I call it, really understanding and guiding people that really life is ministry. A lot of times we like to compartmentalize, I guess you would say, and to say, okay, this is ministry and the pastor does ministry. This is the secular, and I perform at work here, or I'm supposed to be professional here.
Yeah.
But I think over the last year, it's really just been evident that the two go hand in hand. We are, as Christians, ministers of the gospel. We have the privilege to be ministers of reconciliation. We have the privilege to call people to Jesus there. And really there's more ministry done outside the walls of the church, or should be done outside the walls of the church. Because as the church, when you're coming in, you were by design equipped to go.
Yeah, that's good. I just watched a little like reel on actually before y'all walked up here, on my phone, and it was a preacher, seemed like a more charismatic, maybe even like Church of God type preacher, that was talking to his congregation, and he had his whole congregation stand up, and he said, "Feel the chair behind you," and he felt the chair. They all reached back and felt the chair behind him, and he's like, "You feel how that's warm?" And then he goes, "That's not your contribution to the kingdom." And then talked about how they have a calling to go and to share the gospel and to be a presence there in the world around them. And I think that specifically for me, being in full-time ministry and working in the church, and you'll be very familiar with this type of language, like the church, all my coworkers here, they're saved. Right. The majority of the people that I come in contact with week to week, they're saved. And also the school that I go to, it's a theological institution of Southern Baptist people. Like I'm surrounded by saved people, and
with a gate around the walls there at the seminary.
Exactly. But I think that it's been a unique thing for me to learn here in Ponchatoula, especially coming from a very, very Southern Baptist, very church-affiliated area that I was raised in. I live in a neighborhood that has 500 homes, but there's times where I feel like I'm on an island because of just the darkness that I see around me, on Saturdays in the garage parties and things like that. And it's been unique for me to really, I guess, separate the two. It's easy for me to do that because Monday through Thursday, 8 to 3, not typically around many non-believers. But then from 3 to 8 every evening, and then on Saturdays and Fridays, I do have an opportunity there in my neighborhood with those non-believers. But the reason why I say all this is because it's different for the church member. It's different for those that do have a job within a secular workforces. There's non-believers. I mean, we were having a conversation yesterday, and you were sharing that like 80% probably
That's what I would guess.
would be non-believers at just y'all stores.
I would say 80% would probably at least confess not to have a relationship with Christ, and you may even go up, 90% because you may have 10% that make I'm Catholic. We're in South Louisiana.
Right.
That's a big influence. And there's a different question. I'm Baptist. Does that mean I have a relationship with Christ? I'm Catholic. Does that mean you have a relationship with Christ? So I think it could go even higher.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that whenever we talk about this whole conversation of a Christian work ethic and pursuing excellence, the verse that you were thinking of was Colossians 3:23-24. At work as you're working for the Lord. And we see that this high level of excellence. And I had this Sunday school teacher in college that told me this one thing that blew me away. And I think it's very easy for particularly the demographic that's going to primarily be listening to this is college and young adults. It's easy for us in this stage of life to look at these kind of first jobs, whether it be in college, just kind of paying bills, or even first jobs out of college. It's easy to look at these positions as just a stepping stone to get to where we want to go. Right. And we were talking about it in Sunday school one day whenever I was in college, and my Sunday school teacher actually used Chick-fil-A as a reference. It was like every time that you clock in, you should be thanking the Lord for that job in that moment. That it's not just a stepping stone for you. It's the area that the Lord has for you where you could be doing work as unto Him in that moment. And I think it's very easy for young adults to kind of discredit their work environment early on in their career because it's not the six-figure 401k, that kind of situation that they dream of. And so whenever we talk about a Christian work ethic, there is a high level of excellence that's not even requested from Scripture, but it is demanded that we do work hard for the Lord in everything that we do. And I think that just kind of summing up what each of you said, that it even goes beyond the physically performing the task at hand, but it reaches beyond that into the relationship and into the loving one another well and caring for people and becoming more than just a professional, but becoming a kind and caring and loving person. And that kind of segues into the second part of this conversation that I want to talk about, and that's a missional work ethic. So we kind of have the foundation of a basic Christian, more of the lifestyle, and now we're getting into the missional side of working as worship. And we just kind of touched on it. Maybe initial questions, if there's anything else y'all would like to add, is how large would you say the mission field is there where y'all are at, just right there?
I guess, do you mean in numbers? Is that what you mean by?
I guess I don't even.
I mean, really. I mean, so obviously, I do think the majority of our impact is going to be easier for our team members than obviously than our customers' time that we spend. But even that, I mean, we talk to a lot of customers that come in a lot often. And
you told me my first 3 months there, slow down. I was taking trays to tables. I was moving way too fast, and even with the customer. Operator reminded me, hold on, we want to pause and touch there. So I think even with the customer,
so. I mean, especially if you come in morning time. I mean, there's a lot of older folks that come in, and and the pastor is there every morning now. I mean, he reads his Bible to people that he's met there. And I think just providing a place where it's hey, that we like that. I mean, that's really cool. So I do think, but I think the majority of it is through team members that really just don't have. It sounds tough, but they don't have parents that have raised them really well, and they don't have mentors to look up to. And I remind Roseanne, my wife, about it all the time. I was like, we're a lot of people's mentors. I was like, you know, and it's like they look up to us because they see a healthy marriage, they see like healthy raising kids, they see people that are happy, and a lot of times it's really reminding them. Like, there's a better way to do life than what you've learned.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm 23. I've been married for less than 2 years, and I feel the same way. Like, our students here, I very much feel that kind of mentorship of, especially to those that might have grown up without that.
Yeah.
It's very easy for someone, even just in the next stage of life, to look at that and attach, like, that's who I want to be. That's who I'm going to look up to. That's what I'm going to, that's what I'm going to see the most, I guess, respect in. So we see that, and then maybe, did you have anything else to add to that?
I think even at Chick-fil-A, and no matter where you're at, if people view you as a believer and they know that foundation is there, regardless of age, I think they're going to be drawn to you. Sometimes good ways, sometimes bad ways. But I think we never know the value that we have, what we bring to the table. We'll never realize that fully. But also, I think we really don't understand the influence that we have in our workplaces.
That's good.
Yeah, I think it's really easy to forget the influence piece. It's like there's a lot of people that really do. Like, over time, you'll hear, and I heard this talk once before, they just call it like leadership moments. It's like, to you, it's just another minute you spent talking to that team member that you don't even remember. But to that team member, it meant the world. Like, it changed their life. It changed their mindset.
That's great. And actually, kind of getting into this missional work ethic, whenever I asked you to do this podcast, Gary, one of our other church members, was standing there, and I kind of told you what we were going to be talking about, and Gary goes, he works at Chick-fil-A. It's like church and eating chicken there. and I didn't say it in the moment, but I started to think about it afterwards, and we were talking about this yesterday as well, and I was like, exactly. Like, that's exactly how Christians should that's how every workplace that's run by a Christian should feel, like it's church, but you're just doing business there. And I think that that's obviously become such a core value for so long for y'all's company that literally everybody knows what Chick-fil-A stands for, right? Like, everybody in the news, and obviously there's been a lot more pressure towards Chick-fil-A for that. But, like, I applaud the company for just standing so strong in the midst of all that, you know. And I think that, again, like, we look at this missional work ethic, and whenever, you know, let's say someone isn't aware of the core values of Chick-fil-A, and they see that they're closed on a Sunday, and it's a fast food chain, and then they're like, why is Chick-fil-A closed on a Sunday? Like, that doesn't make sense. And then
I even question that at points.
Well, and I think that Pastor John even preached about it this past week whenever John the Baptist was being questioned for who was he. He was going around and sharing the gospel with everybody, and the religious elites were like, who are you? Who even are you? Why are you doing this? And I really took away from that. He didn't even say this, but I took away from it, like, are we living our lives as believers in a way that is so different from the normal worldly way of living that people can look at us and go, who are you? Like, why do you even do that? And I think that that's a really big stance to take from a business standpoint of, like, this doesn't make any sense until you look at why you do it.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say, I think that's definitely the Cathy family. You know, I think back whenever they started that and they were closed on Sunday, I honestly think it wasn't that different. Like, it was still different for restaurants more, but I think a lot of businesses were still kind of like that. I think now, over the last 5 or 10 years, there has been a lot of pressure to do things very different at Chick-fil-A. And it's really cool that the Cathy family, like, really over the last 5 years, when Andrew Cathy, he's the grandson of the founder, and he became the CEO, like, he was very adamant. He's like, our purpose is still to glorify God by being a faithful steward of what we're entrusted. And it was just really just reinforcing. He's like, we're never going to leave that. He's like, we might, he even said that. I think he said that. He's like, we might sell hamburgers one day. We We might do a totally different business, but we're still going to seek to glorify God.
Wow.
And he's like, and that's the commitment.
I think that was Truett's commitment there to glorify God in everything that he did. Truett Caffey taught Sunday school 5th and 6th grade boys for over 50 years. And then realizing that influence that he had, I think what he realized was he didn't go to church, he was the church.
Yeah.
And as a businessman, he's been gone. Joe, how long? He passed
about 10 years. He passed
about 10 years. But yet his impact lives on,
Right.
As he's established so many organizations, as his influence, he had foster kids come into his home. One of his burden, as he was the church, was to love kids. He cared for the widows and the orphans there. That was ministry to him in the secular sense.
Yeah.
There, and because of that, he took Chick-fil-A as a business and said, okay, how can I have a lasting impact when I'm gone?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's great. I want to ask two kind of final questions. The first one being, what are some opportunities within the service industry specifically? You're dealing with customers every day, and you've even kind of touched on it, but there might be students that are listening to this that are servers, that are cashiers or whatever it might be. They're dealing with customers too. What are some opportunities within the service industry for a gospel presence with customers? So we've talked about the relational aspect with team members, but what about with customers?
I can kind of tell you what I think. I think like, so what we call second mile service is I think you have like your base of what you're expected to do, like as an employee. But I think going the extra mile is like going above and beyond for customers. So we teach it as part of what we try to do. But I think even in any other restaurant or any other kind of place where you're dealing with customers, is like really go above and beyond so that you really stand out to that customer. And because it really creates that relationship piece. And I just know it. I mean, I just know like a lot of times people will ask you like, why are you so happy? Like, why do you do this thing? And it just allows the door to open and just say, hey, I just life is good. Like, I'm at peace with who I am. I love what I do, and I love people. But I think just going the extra mile. I mean, that's what we call it, just going the extra mile for customers.
Okay.
And I think by doing that, doors open so that you can share the gospel, so that you can share who Jesus is, how he's impacted you, and realizing that it's small touches along the way. We're probably not talking about a 5-minute conversation there, but a 30-second moment that is an impactful moment within the life of the business, but it goes forth. It's impactful on that person as you're pointing that person to Jesus.
That's good. That's good. And then final question, it might even be maybe a little bit hard to answer this question, but just kind of overarching, again, being in full-time ministry kind of leaves me out of touch to a lot of secular industries where we see people working. How well do you think that believers that are in the workplace, how well are they doing at representing Jesus?
I mean,
It went quiet.
I think it's tough. I think it's really hard to answer. I mean,
Right.
I think, and I think there's so many different levels too. I mean, like if you go to Chick-fil-A corporate, you would probably feel like you're a church. I mean, really, that's really how you feel there. I think if you go work in the kitchen,
Right.
and I think I do think the Christians that I know work with us, like they're pretty clear about being Christian, and you can honestly, I mean, I think about Sabrina. I think about some team members that are just very joyful.
Yeah.
And you can see it. I mean, when things get really, really hard and stressful,
100%.
some team members' mindsets are like, "This sucks. I can't wait to leave. I can't wait to get mad." They might curse sometimes. And then the team members who are Christian or are very bold about being a Christian are just like, "Man, we get to serve all these people."
Right. Yeah.
It's a totally different mindset.
That's good.
I think often we can become depressed. We can become frustrated. We can look out there and maybe say my impact doesn't matter because there's such a darkness, if you will. I hate that word around us, but the influence to be Christ-like, little Christians, if you will, little examples of Jesus. We a lot of times feel we can't measure up, and when we look around, we feel lost because there is a world out there. When we look at just who goes to church, if I'm right, at least 2 years ago from a ministry background, here in Tangible Hope Parish, roughly 3 to 4% will be in a church on any given Sunday morning. So when we look at that stat, it is overwhelming. When we go out into our workplaces, we have a job to do. But when we realize that, I think it's just one life at a time, making one moment at a time count.
Yeah.
We are grateful for those opportunities, and we are encouraged a little bit more. Joe, you mentioned one of the team members, Sabrina, there. I think Sabrina is a great example because I think a lot of times there, especially in the kitchen, she feels like at points that maybe her influence wanes because just the demands of the business. And that's not reality. Our influence is there, but it's everything that we have around us that sometimes blinds us. There, her influence is greater than she realizes. And I think when we are, as believers, when we realize that we are the church,
and that's what I see, like a lot of team members over time. That's what I'm saying. Is like a lot of the ones that do hang around for 4 or 5 years, that like probably 4 or 5 years ago, you'd be like, man, this person was just depressed and not a Christian. But then 4 or 5 years later, you start to see sparks of like, okay, like they're seeing, I don't know if this is right or not, but they're seeing the benefit of being a Christian. They're seeing the joy of being a Christian, to where they're like, okay, there actually probably is a better way to do life than how I've been doing it. And I think it's just over time, for a lot of people, it just takes time for them to really buy into like something that's different.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Think we don't know people's story. One of the things that I'm learning about Chick-fil-A is tell your story. As you tell your story, you're pouring in to people. It may take hours, one moment at a time to tell your story. But as you're telling your story will make an impact, really, because your story is Jesus investing in you.
That's good. That's great. Well, that was kind of all that I had planned. Is there any other last nuggets of wisdom that you'd like to share, maybe on this topic?
I think like really kind of we mentioned it earlier already, but I think just being content with where you're at in the season. I think you're right. A lot of people do come in to Chick-fil-A, and say, hey, I'm gonna use this and work here for so until my next thing. And I think obviously I've gotten to a point where it's like that is who we are. Like that's almost like we want to be. Like we really want to embrace it as a people development to help the next thing. And I guess like one thing I would share that I do share with a lot of young people is I think the environment's there to grow, but it's your responsibility to grow. And I think it's like you have to take the initiative. And I think those things, especially as a Christian, I think taking the initiative to lead, taking the initiative to love others, taking initiative to go above and second mile service. I think those are the things, obviously I do think it'll benefit you more if you want to grow anywhere. And I think, I think just knowing where you're at, give it the best you got. And it's like, True used to always say that. It's like, why not your best? Like, just give it your best every day. Why not? And that's why I tell people all the time. It's like, we're going to pay you the same wage. You can give it 10% effort or 110% effort. And it's like, why not give it the best?
Yeah. That's a good word. That's awesome. Well, this has been great. Thank you guys for sitting down and chatting with me. This will be up in a couple weeks from now, but I'm excited for y'all there at Chick-fil-A and also as members of our church serving the Lord here with us, but also obviously there in the chicken ministry. That's what I'm going to start calling it, is the chicken ministry. But thank you guys so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Everybody watching, make sure that you like and subscribe. Share this with someone that maybe might be struggling in their season of contentment with their job, or maybe wondering what they should do for work. whatever they do for work, they could do it for the glory of God. Other than that, we love y'all. Thank you for watching this.